Today is the third Sunday of Easter. Our gospel is the very well-known gospel of the encounter of the two on the road to Emmaus with the risen Lord, taken from Luke chapter 24, verse 13 through 35. It's a beautiful story, a delightful story. In terms of literature, it's a well-constructed story, very appealing. Maybe one of the reasons this story appeals is that it highlights something, implicitly at least, that is common to us all. The experience of recognizing or not recognizing, of getting it or not getting it. We've all had that experience. Sometimes it can be a wonderful experience of enlightenment, of awakening to something that was there all along, but we didn't see it. Or it might be an embarrassing experience. We feel as though we should have seen it. We should have gotten it. St. Luke tells us that the two are walking along and there's some despondency there. Their heads are down and Jesus joins them and he says, "What are you talking about?" And incidentally, the word used for talking about is the Greek word homileo, from which we get our word homily. There's a lesson to be learnt there, I think, but that's for another reflection. What does Jesus do? This is very significant. Does he say, "Hang on there. You've missed the point. You didn't get it. You didn't recognize what was happening. I told you so many times. Now go back to Jerusalem where you should be"? No. Jesus walked with them. Jesus listened to them. He gently and with great compassion reiterated the story that he'd attempted to tell them a number of times before. They still didn't get it. They asked him to stay, and in the breaking of the bread, it dawned on them. They did get it. They recognized him in the breaking of the bread. But there's a complexity there, because when they say they recognized him in the breaking of the bread, they recall their hearts were burning within them on the way. In other words, the Spirit of Jesus was, as it were, knocking on the door of their heart, and they weren't answering it, even as they walked along. There is a great lesson to be learned here about the complexity, the mysteriousness of our recognizing what matters most, and our respecting that in other people. It has something to say in terms of our conversations with others when they want an explanation of what we believe, and our conversations with ourselves when we are struggling with what we believe, when we are facing doubt, for example. The important thing is that this is not just a rational, logical matter, one that will succumb to good, hard argument. We are far more complex. We deserve much more care and time, listening, gentleness, and compassion. St. John Henry Newman, in 1870, wrote a very considered piece called An Essay in Aid of a Grammar of Assent. Now, it's worth noting in passing that about that same time, the First Vatican Council was defining or moving towards a definition of the infallibility of the Pope. That too is a matter for another reflection at another time. John Henry Newman writes about the large outfit, and these are his words, the large outfit of existing thoughts, principles, likings, desires, and hopes, which make me and others what I am or what they are. In other words, a person is not just a rational unit. A person is a complex array of memories and expectations and desires. Newman goes on and says, I do not want to be converted by a smart syllogism. If I am asked to convert others by it, I say plainly, I do not care to overcome their reason without touching their hearts. I wish to deal not with controversialists, but with inquirers. If we live as inquirers and keep alert for those others around us who are inquiring, avoid the controversialists. Avoid those who just want argument or want to buttress their own position by putting you down. It's not worth the effort. Respect them enough to be silent and let it go. But if someone is genuinely inquiring, and indeed, if you hear inquiry in your own heart, respond as Jesus did on the road to Emmaus. Walk with the person. Walk with yourself. Listen. Reiterate the truths of the story of Jesus, the Son of God, who lived and died for us, who is risen from the dead and walks with us even now.